What makes a legend within Night City? Is it someone who is carrying a ton of chrome, so much so that it makes them stand out from a mile? Is it someone who has an overwhelming arsenal at their disposal, capable of taking out anyone they need? Is it someone who has a ton of influence and can control others through a promise of eddies and glory? Or is it just someone who will do anything they can to make a name for themselves within the history books, willing to put their life on the line to be remembered by all? Well, in this monumental city, legends come in all shapes and sizes and are known for all different things. From notorious rockers to legendary netrunners and even sadistic killing machines, all making a name for themselves through their many actions over the years. Within this week's video, we will be exploring the iconic hitman that was so powerful that he was sometimes known as a one-man army. Known for his cybernetic arm and rivalry to the previously explored Arasaka Borg known as Adam Smasher, this legend would go on to shape this city and trigger the events of 2077. This solo would be known as Morgan Blackhand, one of the greatest mercs the world had ever seen. So who is Morgan Blackhand? What is his origin story? What did he do to become a legend? And where is he now in the year of 2077? This is the story behind the legends of Night City. This is the story behind the legendary solo known as Morgan Blackhand. But before we begin, GFuel were extremely kind enough to support this channel even further thanks to your amazing support over the past month, and sent me those amazing new products that they have just recently released. The Fallout Nuka-Cola Quantum, for example, is an incredible flavour that is one of my favourites now, and this collector's edition is just super cool. But with this, they have also been kind enough to make my code even better, allowing you guys to get 30% off of most of all of their new flavours, like these ones that I'll post on screen now. But if you don't see anything you like there, you can also get 20% off of anything else on their site, allowing you to get some really awesome flavors to enjoy whilst gaming, at work, or even when you're just out and about traveling. As I've mentioned before, I've been having these drinks for a while now, and they really help out during editing sessions and also really help me with my energy boost when I am at the racetrack competing for podiums. So if you really want to support this channel and treat yourself to some really awesome flavored drinks, use the link in the description below or use my code WiseFish YT to get up to 30% off your order today. So once again, thank you all so much for making this partnership possible, and thank you to GFuel for supporting this channel. And with that all done, let's get back to exploring the legends of Night City. Morgan Blackhand was born within Brooklyn, New York, and quite early on it was evident that Morgan was born to be a true soldier and a fierce leader. Getting to adulthood within the 1980s, Morgan served within the US military and became known as one of the fiercest soldiers of the platoon. During his rookie years, Morgan was faced with an immediate situation where he would have to take over the command of his special cyber soldier unit due to his commander going cyber psycho during their mission. Because of moments like this, it became quite clear to many that Morgan was special. He was a natural born leader who could adapt to situations extremely quickly. But as his war came to an end, Morgan would be discharged from the army and simply became known as a combat veteran who had proudly served his country well. Leaving the army, however, Morgan's purpose in life became lost as he did not know what was left for him anymore. His skills in killing and leading a squadron was lost in the regular world, and on top of that, his skills in demolition made it so that many employers out there did not see him as a worthy candidate for their business, and because of it, Morgan was turned down many times for just generic desk jobs. This continued for months on end, with Morgan struggling to really survive. His skills were being wasted, but there was nothing for him out there in the normal mundane world. They were only being used to keep him alive. However, one day, as Morgan roamed the streets of his home city, he would go on to bump into a local booster gang, another term for a street gang who were known for enhancing themselves with cybernetics, and when bumping into them, came face to face with their leader, who immediately took a disliking to him. With tension getting hostile between the two, with the booster gang leader hating Morgan more and more by the minute, Morgan would eventually take the leader out, and with ease, making easy pickings of all the gang members and really showing to anyone witnessing this that Morgan Blackhand still had his incredible skills and was not to be messed with. This did indeed go on to impress one faction in the process, this being the military corporation known as Militech, whose recruiter happened to be within the area during the attack and saw everything that had happened. Shortly after Morgan had wiped out the gang, the recruiter walked up to Morgan and made him an offer he could not refuse, bringing him into the Militech world and enabling Morgan to become a mercenary who would be able to take care of any problems the corporation might face. Becoming Militech's mercenary was fantastic for Morgan, as he was finally able to use and develop the skills he had learnt within the army back in the 1980s. But not only did this help him develop as an individual, but it would also allow him to teach many other professionals the tricks of the trade, enlightening them about his experiences on the battlefield, which would go on to massively increase his street cred. He would also during this time go on to resolve many high-profile incidents, with one incident of note involving the legendary rock star Kerry Eurodyne, who had been kidnapped within the year of 2019. This whole incident would be seen as a fundamental moment for the band of samurai, as it allowed them to not only meet Morgan Blackhand himself, but to learn from him. Morgan during this kidnapping mission would single-handedly capture all 5 of Kerry's kidnappers and turn them all into federal authorities, once again allowing him to develop even more street cred and become loved by all of Samurai's and Kerry's fans. For many though, their amazement came from the fact that Morgan not only got the job done, but he did it without killing any of them. Many people could have done this job with ease, but to do it without one death was something incredible, especially when he was completely outnumbered 5 to 1. Morgan was seen as outstanding in this regard because it not only helped Kerry out, but it also completely embarrassed the kidnappers' sponsors in the process, and would go on to define Morgan as a true pragmatist. He wasn't just a heartless killer, he thought about everything and used it in his work, with most remembering him as that legendary solo who would be able to capture targets alive instead of just going in guns blazing. By the year of 2020, Morgan Blackhand was seen as the #1 solo professional in the business by the Solo of Fortune annual 2020 awards within the United States. His fame was known all around, and many groups would fear him and his work, allowing him to only take the best jobs that paid the most money. Morgan would also add to his fame and expertise by writing the Enforcer's Handbook, which would be so popular that it would go on to sell over 1 million copies by that same year. With this book now in circulation and many professionals using it for their work, Morgan was able to completely revolutionize the entire solo profession and turn it into something known all over the US. But the world was quickly changing, and with the solo profession getting bigger by the minute, it was only a matter of time before more battles were to be had all over the country. This would include those within the new war emerging between Arasaka and Militech. Going into 2021, it was time for Morgan Blackhand to show off his skills once again and to make his impression on the world. It was now time for him to fight with Militech within the conflict known as the Fourth Corporate War. Fourth Corporate War started to progress, Militech and Arasaka would become bitter enemies and would actively seek to take out one another without a care for the destruction they'd cause around them. As the war destroyed many cities in the process, as well as disrupting all low orbit travel, the two parties would take to Night City to continue their battle, with both of them trying to outdo each other and push them out of the city. Whilst Arasaka was eventually successful in pushing Militech out of Night City, it wouldn't be long before Militech were back to the drawing board to make sure their next attack on Arasaka would be a fatal one, and one the world could not forget. Here Militech would set up an operation that would be to send a small special ops team into Night City's Arasaka Tower and detonate a bomb within. This plan, however, was top secret, with not many knowing of it even when it was going on. However, there was another reason for this operation, something that went all the way back to the event that would see the death of the old net, labelled as the data crash. It was said that Militech and co had learned that despite the destruction of most of the net in the crash, Arasaka had actually preserved a lot of data and stored it within their databases that had been programmed to survive the downfall of the net, utilizing a version of the data crash program. With this knowledge that Arasaka still housed vital data, Militech knew they had to infiltrate where the data was being stored within Arasaka Tower and to essentially dump, copy or destroy that archive once and for all. If this process was too difficult for the team being sent in and they couldn't destroy it with regular firearms, Militech had a backup that was to be the last resort option. This was by supplying the team with a pocket nuke that would completely wipe out the tower and with it the data, which would be trapped within the old net, forcing Arasaka to spend months if not years combing through it to reassemble the archive from the scattered compilation backups all over the Arasaka network. With this plan now formed, it was quite clear to Militech what needed to be done, and now they could assemble their strike force for the mission, which would of course be led by the most famous solo in all of the United States, Morgan Blackhand himself. With Morgan now heading the Ocean War Special Ops team, he would not be told of why he was on this specific mission, but knew that it was vital for the war. But Morgan didn't have to do this alone. Militech had provided him with a handsome budget that would allow him to recruit highly skilled and motivated freelancers who would only answer to him. This team was eventually set up featuring the Samurai lead singer and passionate activist Johnny Silverhand, who would go on to lead Strike Team Alpha, and Morgan leading Strike Team Omega. Ultimately, Strike Team Omega was the backup squadron which worked alongside Militech's elite combat Borg units to take over the task if Johnny's Alpha Squadron and Beta Squadron failed in their task. But as the task went ahead, it became quite clear that as the data was so hard to get to, the only option was to go nuclear and send the data back into the old net for Arasaka to have to rummage through for years. The plan was going well for the squadrons as they had successfully infiltrated the tower and set up all of the nuclear devices. However, one thing Morgan had not taken into account was Arasaka's prized merc, who was on the verge of becoming a full cyborg. That was the sadistic killing machine known as Adam Smasher. For years, Smasher had hated Morgan Blackhand, most likely because of his reputation, but mainly for the fact that Smasher believed that cybernetics trumped natural human abilities, with Smasher stating regularly metal was better than meat. For years, Smasher had tried to get the upper hand on Morgan, frequently trying to challenge him, but Morgan would always refuse. But now, with Morgan working for Militech and Smasher working for their warring enemies of Arasaka, Smasher was finally able to face him one-on-one and prove that metal was indeed better than meat. With Morgan trying to escape the Arasaka tower that was minutes away from detonating, Smasher wearing his die-only battlesuit would start his attack on Morgan, and the two legendary solos would test their fierceness. But with the charges now detonating, the building was becoming extremely unstable. But that did not stop the two as they continued to battle on, launching themselves at each other in the last desperate attempt to kill each other. But as they did, the nukes would detonate, and with it, the story of their battle came to an end, with no one knowing what the final outcome was. But it was said that both were able to survive, with Smasher becoming even more disfigured and even more Borg than before. The Arasaka tower was destroyed, completely enraging Arasaka and forcing them to retreat from Night City. But for the strike force, they had lost two vital members in this attack. The first being Johnny Silverhand, who had been captured by Arasaka themselves and turned into an engram for their project known as the Soul Killer. The other member was Morgan Blackhand himself, whose whereabouts was completely unknown. Years passed with no one hearing from the legendary Solo. None of his work was appearing on the streets, and not one gang had reported coming into contact with the deadly individual. However, eventually, rumors started to spread regarding his whereabouts, with some stating he had returned to President Kress to report the failure of his mission and to continue his work once again, but this time as a secret governmental asset. Between the years of 2035 and 2045, rumors continued on about where Morgan had gone, with many people saying they spotted him in several first wave cities, places that needed little reconstruction and resources to rebuild after the Fourth Corporate War. But by 2077, there is still no sign of Morgan Blackhand, with many of his crew, including the dead Johnny Silverhand, not really mentioning him at all. However, two people still know of what he did, those being Jackie Wells, who loves a good legend story, and Claire Russell, the bartender of Afterlife, home of the legends of Night City. But despite their mentions of Morgan, even those two still have no idea where he is to this date. One news report does go on to mention a mysterious mysterious shootout in Japantown where several Lazarus agents were found dead, with one sole survivor being described as a portly man with a black cyber arm, meaning that maybe this was the handiwork of Morgan Blackhand. However, this solo back in the day was renowned for doing the task at hand without really killing anyone, so could this really be his work, or someone who was inspired by his legacy and his handbook written back in 2020? So where is Morgan Blackhand in the year of 2077? Is he still alive, and why does no one mention him, especially Johnny Silverhand? Well, considering there is no evidence of his body or even confirmation of his death, with the afterlife not even having a drink in his name, it's pretty certain, but not 100%, that somewhere out there, Morgan Blackhand is still alive. And considering Adam Smasher was recovered by Arasaka after the bombings and restored to do their work, I reckon Militech would have done the exact same to one of their prized, if not their best warrior they could ask for. But not only that, with Militech now being owned by the new United States government, I have a feeling that the rumor that was spreading during the 2030s and 40s was correct, and Morgan is in fact working as a secret governmental asset for the new president of the new United States of America. This would allow him to be hidden away from any Arasaka forces, as well as anyone looking to take out this legendary solo. As we know, V in the near future will be meeting with the government and signing a faithful act to their country. Could this be the moment V goes on to meet that iconic person and learn the truth behind what happened in 2023 and the bombing of Arasaka Tower, and maybe learn a thing or two about how he operates? But at the same time, having Johnny Silverhand in the play may make this potential future encounter extremely interesting. Why does Johnny's memory show he was the one in charge of the operation and the one behind the nuclear detonation of Arasaka Tower, with even Adam Smasher looking to be their arch nemesis instead of Morgan's? Well, one could argue that with Johnny's personality, he is extremely self-centered and would remember the events extremely differently, with him as the ultimate hero, with even Rogue and Alt stating many times that the stories Johnny tells need to be taken with a grain of salt, as he is known for lying like mad. We never saw how Johnny Silverhand survived the encounter with Adam Smasher when he was ambushed in the tower itself, so maybe Morgan was the one to save him, and for some reason Johnny erased that moment from his dying memory. Ultimately, a lot of questions have to be asked about Johnny and how he became known as the lead member of the Militech Spec Ops group, and realistically, I personally believe there is more to this story, with maybe Rogue knowing that out there somewhere Morgan still lives, and she is protecting her knowledge of what he is doing. Morgan is too big of a character within Night City to just be dead after the events of 2023. And with V going to what seems to be the president's office, I have a theory that this notable legend of Night City will be revealed once again. And finally, we will hear the full story about what happened on that fateful night and what he has been up to for over 50 years. But for now, this has been the story of one of Night City's most powerful mercs ever seen, who single-handedly boosted the solo profession and influenced so many inspiring professionals. You could even argue that without Morgan and his influence, V would have never gotten to where they are today. Will his story continue on in the near future? Or were the events of 2023 really the final time we will ever see and hear from Morgan Blackhand? Only time can really tell. But with all of that said, this has been the story of the Night City legend known as Morgan Blackhand. And that is another legend from Night City covered, with maybe more of their story coming at a later date. Let me know if you think we will ever see Morgan Blackhand again, or if they will just be remembered as a once legend. I want to say a huge thank you to you for watching this video, as well as my amazing patrons who allow me to make videos like this, including our small fishes, my big fishes Christopher, Last Persona User and Artocrem, my YouTube channel Wise Ones, Fiery Italian, Ico the Wolf and Sith Lord 906, my sharks Whale Such Gaming, Jason X117 and our new guy Tristan Finley, and our Megalodons Sinus, Jacob Garcia, Chernobyl Stalker, and our new guy Cody. If you also want to support this channel, you can find the link in the description below, but if not, please do leave a like, check out my other lore videos, leave a subscribe if you haven't already, support me through buying yourself a tub of GFuel with my link to get up to 30% off of your order, and why not leave a nice comment to help get this video out there. But that's all for now, stay safe out there and see you all in the next one. Cheers.